Meeting is being recorded.
Along with that,
Sorry, I forgot to record.
I will also be looking the same topic, happiness, from the scientific perspective, from the studies in social science. So we will look from both perspectives and we'll share some insights to happiness, especially in this interesting times, what we are going through. So I would like to cite a quote from one of the famous Stanford economist. He mentioned that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So he was referring to economy, making the point that this is the time we can have a fresh look at our things. So yes, it is very important for us to have a fresh look into our life and a fresh look into happiness. What is it about? So let's look into this slide. Here we can see, so the topic is how to find happiness amidst chaos. And now here we are in this condition. And I would like to say that on the positive note, even though we are locked down, many of the animals, they are free. They are coming to the cities. And I had to make this point that in many cities where air pollution is an issue, they have improvement over 35%. So there are some good things happening along with the difficulties we are seeing and the financial crisis that is looming in the background. So yes, we had to see from both perspectives. And on the other side, since we are talking about happiness, I have a question for you. What is happiness? So it can be quite subjective. So let's hear from you. What is happiness according to you?
Anyone?
That's a tough question. I actually haven't thought about this, but I was thinking, maybe achieving, your goals and dreams that you had, or going beyond, maybe what you have planned for. Yeah, actually, I haven't thought about it, but that's my attempt at it.
I have to say it's a good start, and many people do share what you told. That is achieving goals, objectives, and feeling that okay, I have done it. Yes, certainly, that is a step towards happiness. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think it's for me, it's got more to do with being content with what you've got. So looking back at what you've achieved so far and being happy. So
wonderful. Contentment. That is another interesting definition of happiness. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think happiness is very subjective. Everyone has a different view about the happiness, right? Because everyone has their own way to satisfy things. So I think happiness can be very subjective.
It is subjective, but what's your definition of happiness?
That's why I think that it's very hard to define, because some people maybe happiness could be something they can make it for financial benefit, but some people it's not. So I think it's very, very hard to define, I think.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to share something?
Yeah, for me, the happiness is like in multi-dimension. We talk about family happiness, where your family is good, living happy life, the personal achievement of goals and what you achieve and being happy. On the other hand, to bring the society to the correct level, provide your support in the society and being happy and provide support to the needy people. So it's multi-dimension for me.
Good. I like that, multi-dimensional. We are spanning across different spectrum and satisfying different aspects to be happy. Good. The There are multiple definitions of happiness. It is very subjective, as one of our friends pointed out. Happiness can be a life feel good. It can be just a bubbly personality who is most of the time joyful, happy. It could be sheer physicality, sensory stimulation for some. It could be possession and control. It could be contentment and connectivity. It could be being in the moment. It could be being in the flow so that we have our skills and we have our challenges, but we have sufficient skill to go through it. So as we go through our life, the time just flies. So yes, it could be any one of them, and this can be quite subjective. And or at this point in time, a world without coronavirus and this finance crisis. So yeah, it could be anything at this point. Now, let me ask you another question. On a broader scale, when you think, what are the main influence on our happiness? What influences our happiness? I'm asking this question because the social scientists who have studied happiness for a couple of decades, they have come up with this statistics about the influencing factors on our happiness. So any guesses? This we'll try one or two.
I think it's yourself. I mean, if
It's yourself. Good point. Anything more?
I think for myself, it's the people I allow to influence me. So it's the people that I allow to surround myself.
Very interesting point. The association that you choose. Good. All right. Anyone else would like to throw something on this regard? If not, I'll share something for you. Here we go. So these are the first one, according to the scientific studies, it is the genetics. So in one sentence, we are being hardwired for certain kind of happiness. So it is something which we can't change, unfortunately. But this is only social studies. We'll go deeper than that. I don't want you to be fulfilled only 50%. So 50% genetics. What's the next? Let's go on. The second one is circumstances that we choose. So, or maybe we may not choose, say, probably a work condition, a family condition, maybe our neighbors, we don't know what, but the circumstances which are, in one sense, beyond our control or we are stuck with. So that is about 10%. So we have covered 60%. Now we have our 40%. We can really look into it, and that is our free choice. So it is not too bad in one sense that we have at least 40% influence on our controlling our happiness, which is, I would say, it is fairly good. However, when we go into the ancient yoga wisdom, then we understand that it is not just 40%, but it is 100%. It's a gradual progression, but one can move into the level of happiness, the depth of happiness, according to your free choice. But it takes some courage, it takes some practice, it takes some wisdom. So it's a positive note. It's not really negative. We have our control over happiness. Now moving on, again, one main factor for all of us in our happiness quest is wealth. Because we do work, we need to earn some money, we had to pay our bills. Agree? Then how much our happiness is dependent on wealth? Any suggestions from anyone?
I actually think it's quite a lot because we spend so much of our time, like available time, at work. 8 hours, a day, and if you exclude the sleeping hours, you don't, it's a huge amount. So I think it's actually quite a lot.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of our time that we consumed, we are spending a lot of time to get some money out. So certainly that's true. But our happiness, is it dependent on just money? If you become richer, will you become happier?
No, that's not true. And money gives you opportunities to do things you may be liking, but money in itself doesn't make you happy at all. In fact, it probably makes you miserable because you're worried about losing money.
Okay. There's some words of wisdom from our friend. That's true. Anyone else would like to add a comment? Anyone thinks otherwise? We don't have problem. We are open to everything. Okay. If not, yes, there has been studies done on happiness and wealth. So I'm just quoting some social studies to make you think. So this is not something which is being written in the ancient yoga texts, but it is current. So it is mentioned that US, they quadrupled their GDP over the years, but their subjective level of happiness reduced. Similarly, Japan, they quintupled their GDP, but over the years they found that their happiness level is decreasing. So there's no direct correlation between happiness and wealth. However, now if I say there's no relation, some people would object. The reason is we had to pay our bills. And if we can't pay our bills, we'll be in trouble. So certainly we find, okay, there has to be some correlation between happiness and our wealth or our well-being and wealth. So let me show you one graph here. So this is saying that, okay, one could increase one's happiness approximately up to the level of a middle class happiness, a middle class level of income. So where one has enough to live, to get by. And after that, there is no increase in happiness. By the way, this curve is a bit controversial at this point. Everyone knows this curve. I'm not talking about flattening the curve. So we know that in the scientific terms, this Gaussian curve or the bell curve is often being used. So yes, according to the calculation of the material happiness, there is an increase in happiness to get to the level where we can pay our bills, we have something to eat, we have a shelter over our head. After that, any increase in wealth is going to decrease our happiness. So many people would object, why is it so? Yes, there are many reasons to it, but essentially, that's the reality that even if we increase in our wealth, still our happiness is not going to increase, rather it's going to decrease. However, there is an interesting disconnect. Many of the professors and scientists who came up with this graphs, they were asked this question that now you know that clearly that increasing in your wealth is not going to give you any more happiness. So will you stop accumulating wealth? Will you stop pursuing your journey for more wealth? However, the answer was no. They are saying, according to our objective studies, it clearly shows that more wealth is going to bring us misery. Still, we want to be wealthier and miserable rather than stick to the level we are and be happy. So here we can see there's a disconnection, a distance between the knowledge and the practice. Why is it so? Yes, of course. They can't find an alternative level of happiness. They can't find an alternative level of engagement wherein one can have happiness. So, of course, there is that disconnection. How about our friend before that pointed about achievements? We have our objectives, and if we can achieve that, then we will become happy. Yes, all of you have achieved things in your life, from smaller to bigger, but how long that happiness lasted for? Maybe a day, maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe 6 months. Probably I'm stretching it. So whatever we achieve, we do feel happy for some time. Then there is this term called adaptation. we get adapted to what we have achieved. We get used to it. Then we don't have any happiness anymore, unfortunately. So this is the calculation of material happiness. And we can actually go beyond that. I still remember one of my friends. He moved to Perth. He got married, recently married, and he had this ambition. I need to own my own Audi car. And it was very expensive, very plush model. And he didn't have ready cash, so he took a loan. He purchased his Audi car. After purchasing it, he parked in front of his apartment. There was no car park as such on the street. And he started thinking, look, I have got this expensive car and I'm still parking in the street. If something happens to my car, if someone scratches it, what would happen? He decided, no, I need a big house with a nice garage so that I can safely park my new car. Indeed, he managed to finance that. He got his new house with a big garage. Now he has his car. Then the financial reality hit him. So he realized, look, I don't have enough money. So he sent his wife to work in a different place for much more financially viable job. He was working for the mines, so he was off to work in the mine. In a week or two, he realized that, look, I have got this car, which nobody's driving. I have got this big house and a big garage, but nobody's living there. What's going on? And he was the beginning of his relationship, so there was some relationship issues going on. So then he called me up, fighting what to do next. So then I had to advise, look, we had to act practically. Don't just go on with this objective dreams, which one achieves, but there is no lasting happiness. So this is the reality. We can have achievements, but that happiness do not last very long. So that is the that is the nature of material happiness. And let's see how our mind works in this regard. Because one thing we can objectively say that happiness is not just external, but it's internal. So when we look inwards, first thing we can look into is our mind. Mind can function in different ways. For example, even if there is this crisis going on, some people don't care about it. They are partying. In certain places in USA, they had the end of the world parties. And the youngsters, they're shouting out, we don't care what is this corona, let it come. Still we will party. So that is being careless. Second, which is many people are, that is a confused state because of stress and anxiety. And I had to make this point that worrying is not necessary, even though we tend to do that. There has been an interesting study done about worrying. And they found out that 85% of the things that we worry about do not happen in our life. 85%. So that's a big number. Then of the 15% that we really worry about, 79% we can handle them in a much better way than we thought about. So when we do the math, it'll come that 97% of the things that we are worrying about, we don't really need to worry about. Maybe 3% we may be in trouble, but of the 97% of time, we are simply worrying. So we are just hopping on a treadmill of worry, which is not taking to us anywhere. So we had to catch our mind. So this is the second situation. One is confused with stress and anxiety and worrying. And people are amassing, toilet papers, doing the panic shopping, which we don't need to. We don't need to really worry about those things. We can just be focused on the current situation and things will roll by. That is a third situation. Third one is not just confused. One is careless, second is confused, and third is careful. One can be careful about our well-being on the bodily level, on the financial level, on the emotional level, but at the same time, we don't panic. We try to be peaceful. So it is mentioned that many people do say that happiness means peace. However, yoga text would say that a precursor to happiness is peace. And what is that peace? Peace means our minds, the desires are not turning us apart. There are not so many desires and ambitions which are pulling us all the time. Point number one. Point number two, our senses are at peace. They are not demanding us, oh, give me this, give me the other thing. Where's the money? It's not demanding so much. So the mind is at peace. So this is a good situation. One can go deeper in terms of our happiness pursuit. In addition, I would like to make another point about the mind. That when there is stress, when there is anxiety, it's our practice to distance ourselves from the mind. Rather than taking part in the activities of the mind, we can always take a step behind. We can observe the activities of the mind, which is very well possible. To a certain degree, meditation helps to do that, where we are being an observant of our own mind. We are being an observant of the activities of the mind rather than just taking part in those worries. So even if some worries are coming through to our mind, hold on, don't let this mind, this worries attack us. Don't think that I am being worried. Rather, this mind is going through this emotion. Let me take a step back and let's observe the changes to the mind. You can always do this, not necessarily when you're worried. You can always take a step back from your mind and you can observe the activities of the mind. From that, you can see you are even deeper than the mind. You are not just the mind, you are deeper than the mind. It comes to an interesting story, which is quite applicable in our current scenario. It's an old story, Eastern wisdom, about a king who used to be very imbalanced emotionally. When some happy moment comes, he would cheer up, he would be very active, exuberant. But when things are not going well, he used to hit the rock bottom. So he was going on in this life and he asked his wise minister, what can I do? I don't have any balance in my life. So his wise minister told him, I'll give you a solution. It's a special gift for you. So he said, it's a ring. So he gave him a ring, packaged nicely, and gifted to the king. And told the king, when you are in difficulty, when the mind is reeling, when you're emotionally very disturbed, please take a look at this ring and keep it with you. So indeed, just time passed. King was in deep trouble. He was emotionally disturbed. He thought, okay, I have this ring. Let me try this. He took out this ring and he wore the ring, and then he saw there was an inscription on his ring. And it was written, this too shall pass. It was, this too shall pass. When he read that, the king became peaceful. He thought, okay, whatever difficulty I'm going through at this point, this has to pass. That is the nature of this world. Good times go by, same with the bad times. That is the nature of this material existence. It's temporary. Things come and go. So this is very important in our life as well. We had to understand this is a transient situation rather than, this is not the end of the world. This is not the end of the life. This is not the end of the career. It's not the end of our financial dreams. No, this will come and go. And we can move on in our journey, of which happiness quest is very important. As I mentioned earlier, when we talk about the yoga wisdom, people usually think yoga means just the yoga postures, where we have our downward dog, cat pose, pigeon pose, and people think it's just about that. Yes, that is preliminary stages of yoga that is called the postures, which can help us our body to stretch, to make our mind a little bit calm. But the real yoga is much deeper than that. So the real yoga means kinds of happiness. One can actually go deeper into the depths of happiness, and one can experience happiness which is even deeper than the mind. What mistake we do in our happiness quest? We think that our happiness is external, and we relate our happiness to the external circumstances, achievements, etc. So that is our mistake. Rather, when we understand that happiness is internal and we can go deeper, that is the beginning of real happiness. So the definition of true happiness is something different than we think about. I'll just show you, share a slide in this regard. So according to the yoga wisdom, the real happiness is experienced within the self. It is deeper than the mind. Why do I make this point? Deeper than the mind? Because you can be a witness to your own mind. You can see your emotions. You can be an observer of your own emotions. Just like if you ask someone, how are you? You will say, generally we say, yeah, I'm good. No worries. I'm going all right. We make a statement, but what we are really meant to do is being an observer of our own emotions. If you want to be true to ourselves, then we say, okay, how am I feeling? How is the mind? How is the status of our mind? So the real happiness is experienced within the self. It is deeper than the mind, and it is transcendental, or it is more than the material happiness or distress. So here we are entering another realm. So the true happiness, it is not really dependent on the material circumstances. That which changes all the time. We are deeper than that. And it is sustainable. So the real yoga system means how to get to that level of happiness, which is within. It's in all of us. And how can we connect to that level of happiness? Then one feel more recharged, and it's not dependent on external circumstances. Currently, when we base our happiness on money, then we are in trouble because it comes and goes. If it is dependent just on the possessions, that also comes and goes. If it's on achievements, it is just like the carrot which is hanging. Like I got one something and we had to go move on. After achieving one thing, I think about the next. Just like you all remember your first job, first good job. You may be quite satisfied, happy. Then it's just a matter of time. You feel, oh, it's not enough. I had to go to the next. Similarly, if you get a promotion, oh yeah, I achieved something, but after a while, yeah, I'm used to it. What's next? So that is climbing on the corporate ladder. So the real happiness is not just that. At the same time, I have to make this very important point so that you don't mistake me. We are not really talking about giving up things. We are not talking about leaving the job. We are not talking about being a monk. We are not talking about a reclusive yogi in the mountains in Himalayas. Rather, in the true yoga system, one can be in any circumstance. One could be in front of a computer working, still one can be a yogi. One can be happy with it. One could carry that happiness in family circumstance. One can share that happiness. So it is not just the usual thoughts we may have about happiness. Rather, one can be a yogi working an IT job. So I would just give some takeaway points, and then I will leave it to your questions. And if you want to share some points, in essence, what we discussed today happiness is your choice. So especially when we understand the yoga wisdom, it's not just 40% is in your choice, but 100% of your happiness is in your choice. But it depends on yourself. Second, very important, happiness is internal. So please don't subscribe to the common notion of happiness. If I have something, if I possess something, if I have money, I can become happier and happier. Rather, it's an internal state and we can achieve it gradually. So I'm not giving a magic pill at this point because it's a beginning discussion and it's a progression always. Very important point. Peace is a precursor to happiness. So when we take to any inner development program, we naturally become peaceful, like meditation. So it's a precursor to happiness. So peace in itself is not the real happiness. It is very good because you are being at the moment. You can be mindful. You know what you're doing. You're enjoying what you're enjoying. So it's very good. But one can go deeper because we are not just the mind, but we are deeper. Be an observer of the mind and don't take part in the tricks of the mind, in the tribulations of the mind, the worries of the mind. Yes, understand, we are separate from that. I would say we all now everyone is talking about social distancing. Similarly, we need that kind of distancing from the mind, which is creating trouble for us. So in one of the yoga texts, the classic one, Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned that uncontrolled mind is our worst enemy. At the same time, a controlled mind is our best friend. So, being an observer, we can get to the stage of controlling our mind and taming our mind. Lifestyle changes and meditation can help to peace with our mind, to take out some time to focus on our own well being rather than always getting on the treadmill where we are just active all the time and there is no time for one's own real self or one's own near and dear. And finally, the real happiness is deeper than the mind. So the aim of all yoga system is to connect to that deeper level of happiness, which is sustainable. And as I pointed out earlier, it's not a magic pill, but it's a gradual development. With this, I stop here and I would like to hear from you. You may have some thoughts, some questions, so we can look into them.
I think everyone is happy. We can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. Any questions?
No questions?
Don't be shy. Any questions, any thoughts?
No, this is interesting. I think it's important that we, like you said, that we stop and think about all this, because in the rat race that we are participating in, very often there's no time to think about eternal things like happiness, and I think it's a really good session. So it definitely gives us interesting food for thought for sure. And look, I definitely feel better. So it's good. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that candid expression.
I think we all would benefit from having one more session of how to stop thinking. We all think a lot.
Okay, you mentioned a good point. The reason is I usually give a talk which is called Overcoming Negative Emotions, especially anxiety and worries. It's a very important topic. The reason is in our life, it is very natural when we are going through difficulties. We think about them and we go through that negative spiral where we are going downwards and downwards. You all remember this situation in your own life where you are going through a stressful situation and you can't sleep. Before sleeping, you are thinking about this stressful situation, and in midnight or later, if you get up, still you start thinking about it. And unless you, again, if you go to sleep, otherwise, again, thinking during the day, you think about the same thing. So this spiral of negativity, how can we get out from this spiral of negativity? It's very important for us in our happiness quest. I call our life as happiness quest because most of our activities that we perform, we base on giving happiness to ourselves or others. So let's understand more about this topic. Yes, certainly it's possible.
Thanks, Gopa.
Thank you. Any other final questions or remarks?
Hi, Gopa, this is Monique. You actually mentioned that we spend so much time worrying about something, like 97%. So I was wondering what exactly you would do. So what activity you would do when you are worrying about something and you couldn't get it out of your mind. So during such time, what would you do?
Okay. First of all, I would like to mention to you, I don't have a magic pill. You swallow the pill and you are out of the worry. So this world doesn't work like that. That's the reason I am just giving you the wisdom to think about. The first wisdom about this is we are not the mind, but we are an observer of our own mind. You can take a deep breath. You can just close your eyes and not necessarily now, later. Close your eyes and you can think what are the kinds of thoughts which are coming into your mind. You can see some thoughts are coming inside your mind and some are subsiding and more thoughts are coming. You could see the various activities of your own mind. So that shows that you are something or someone who is separate from the mind. So this yoga wisdom is based on this understanding that we are deeper than the mind, we are a witness to the mind, so we don't need to take part in the activities of the mind. So we have that choice. Certainly, this is the wisdom, and it has to go along with practice. So if we have another session, we can go further a little bit about a practical session on seeing the activities of the mind and taking a step behind. You can, as a practice, I would give as a homework for you, just give it a go. Just see, you try to separate yourself from the mind and see, these are my activities of my mind. Then, of course, there's a second point. As we experience happiness, which is deeper than the mind, on the platform of the self, then it becomes easier for us to separate ourselves from these worrying thoughts. So just like a child, the child, they know this world through their mouth. You might have seen children. Whatever you give them, they put in their mouth. So that is a child's life. But if I have my mobile phone, the child is, trying to bite it. Instead of take out the mobile phone, give a chocolate candy to the child. Then the child become happy. Oh yeah, this chocolate candy is tasting better, so I don't need to bite on this mobile phone. Similarly, a true yogi, I would call an urban yogi, would know that there is happiness which is deeper than this worrying and one can experience it. Then it becomes much easier to uh, get out from this worrying thoughts. So these are some food for thought for the time being. So one, understanding the scenario. Second, experiencing something which is a bit deeper, just like a higher taste. That helps us to go deeper. Make sense?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Hope everyone is
I think we
feeling.
still got some time.
Oh, we have got
We
some
still
time.
got some time for another question. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
if we have.
I would like to say that you can think about the question, you can throw the questions if you want, but I would like to say that we had to stay positive. The reason is our real self is always positive. That's the reality. Even though the external circumstances can bring in negativity, even our mind can bring stress and anxiety, but our true self is about happiness. It's about positivity. So my advice for the coming week is stay positive.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for organizing this event, and I thank all of you for taking part. So I hope you all think about these points a bit more deeply. Then you will have a better quest into your own happiness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gopa.
Thanks, Gopa, and thanks, Vineet.
Yeah, thank you very much, team, for joining. Hopefully, we'll be able to arrange another session after speaking with Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gopa.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gopa. Thank you for
See
the.
you.
Thank you.